Hello, I'm Hayden Johnson, State Political Editor of the Courier Mail, and welcome to our Deputy Leaders Debate, a few days out from the October 26 state election. Now, normally for a debate, you need three things. You need a moderator, you need one politician, and another politician. We have two of those things. Jarrod Bleijie didn't attend today, he decided not to, but we have something even better instead.
Jarrod Bleijie is refusing to attend the Deputy Leaders Debate, so we are taking his cutout on a tour of his electorate to see what the voters think. So we've got a Deputy Leaders Debate next week. Labor have said they'll be there. Jarrod Bleijie has refused to attend. What do you think about the fact that he's not coming?
Not very good. Not very good at all, really, is it?
What do you think of this guy?
Well, you've got to do this then, Dave.
No, okay.
That's a bit disrespectful.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining me in the studio, please make welcome Cardboard Cutout Jarrod. Any opening remarks, Cardboard Cutout Jarrod? That's okay. Please welcome the Deputy Premier of Queensland, Cameron Dick. Deputy Premier, we don't have an opening from Jarrod Bleijie. Would you like to spin our special wheel and find out what he might have said if he was here?
I'll try and give it a go. Oh, it seems to be broken. I think the LNP's run out of money. Let me try it again. Hang on. Right, we're going now.
I call the Premier stuff up, Stephen. Fair enough. Thank you for that contribution, Jarrod. Deputy Premier, the floor is yours for an opening statement.
Thanks, Hayden. And thanks to all of you for being here today. You know, in Queensland, our democracy is a very precious thing. And when we see the civil disorder and the violence around the world, it just makes you proud to live in a state where we can peacefully go about our decision every 4 years about who will govern us. And so I want to thank you for turning up. When I was growing up, my folks used to say, the world is run by people who turn up. And you've turned up today, and I want to thank you for that. Not so much old mate over here, but I'll say a little, not you, Hayden, Cardboard Cutout Jarrod, but I'll say a little bit more about that later. Because elections are also about a contest of ideas. The ideas, the plans, the policies, the programs that the people test. They test through forums like this, by questioning us on the street, when we're door knocking, at early voting centres across the state. And the parties who seek to govern this state need to put their plans to the people. Not slogans, but plans that are well thought out, that are backed by facts and evidence, and that point to the future that they see for Queensland. But those plans need to be, as I said, more than slogans. They need to also be fully costed, but also properly funded. The parties need to be able to tell the people how they're going to pay for their plans. And that's what the Premier and I and the Labor team has been doing since before the election started, to set that out very clearly for Queensland. Our plans for cost of living relief, you know, that's been absolutely central to what we wanted to do as a government. Plans on housing, on better healthcare closer to home, on community safety. All of those plans that we've set out and are now delivering results for Queensland. So I think these sorts of forums, Hayden, are very, very important. I want to thank the Courier Mail for hosting today to explore some of those issues, some of the questions that are in your mind, because they're the questions in the mind of millions of others Queenslanders. But I just wanted to close by saying, I think it says a lot about the LNP that they don't want to bother to be part of this. You know, I think personally, I think it's a little bit arrogant, and I also think it's a little bit contemptuous. And it's not just Jarrod Bleijie, this is a decision of the leader as well. I'm a deputy, and I often do things for Stephen because he can't be in more than one place at one time. So deputies have to do what leaders ask them to do to support the team. And so the leaders made a decision, David Crisafulli, not to be part of this as well. And I don't think that's respectful to the process or respectful to Queenslanders. So I hope I can put our case to you today. I hope I can answer your questions faithfully and honestly, and I hope I can demonstrate to you that our plans for Queensland are a better way for our state going forward. than those being proposed by the LNP. So thanks again for being here, and thanks Hayden and to the Courier Mail for hosting us.
Thank you, Deputy Premier. We will open the floor then to Gail with her first question.
Good morning, Deputy Premier. My concern, and also the concern of my family and friends, is ultimately how are we going to pay for all these electoral promises? 50-cent fares to continue, bulk billing GP clinics, free school lunches, state-owned petrol stations, state-owned energy retailer, energy rebates, car registration discounts, and more. It's already been said that these pledges will be paid for with borrowings. How long is it going to take me, my children and their children to pay off this mounting debt if Labor is re-elected? Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Really appreciate your question, and I suppose it goes to the heart of financial management in the state and what our position is and what our position will be. And I think it's a really important question because a lot of people will be thinking the same thing. I just want you to know the work that we all did together in COVID in particular, and the economic recovery from COVID has been so important to the strength of our state's budget and our economy. And we came out of COVID stronger than almost any other part of Australia and many other parts of the world, save for Western Australia. So our budget is in a very strong position as a consequence. In the last couple of years, I've produced some very big surpluses for Queensland, and that has allowed us to pay down debt and to reduce the debt of Queensland. But we made a decision this year to put our hand in our pocket to make sure we could provide cost of living relief to families and Queenslanders when they were just doing it so tough because of inflation and interest rates in particular. And so I can let you know today, debt at the end of last financial year on the 30th of June was half of what we projected. Net debt went from $12 billion to $5.7 billion. And to put that in context, debt is 16 times higher in New South Wales and 22 times higher in Victoria. So we have a strong balance sheet that we can rely on to not only provide cost of living relief, but also to ensure that we can deliver the infrastructure that a growth state needs. We're going through one of the biggest growth periods in our state's history. Now, we always pay our debts in Queensland. We issue our bonds 3, 5, 10, 30 years. We always pay them. And Queensland never retires. So we will always be able to service our debts. And when you look at whether it's by total amount, whether it's by head of population, as a proportion of the revenue we earn, or as a proportion of our economy, we beat the pants of New South Wales and Victoria. So we are in a position to do this in a thoughtful way, in a way that doesn't add to inflation, but provides help to people. And that was very important for us. Some of them will be temporary measures. They'll run for a year, but then we will get the benefit of interest rate cuts, and cost of living relief will come to families in other ways, ways that we can't control because we can't control interest rates, for example. So I'm always mindful of that, and we will always look to make sure we get that balance right, providing the services, the infrastructure and the support Queenslanders need, while at the same time keeping a very close eye on our budget.
Just following on from that, Treasurer, there's economists talking today. Soles Lakes noted that a cash surplus isn't predicted till beyond the Fords. Will Queensland not pay down its debt then for another 4 years?
Well, we've beat our debt metrics and the forecast debt for every budget that I've delivered except our first budget, which was during COVID. So I've delivered the greatest budget surplus of any state or territory in history, and that allowed us to reduce the debt burden on Queensland. Soles Lake has a particular view of Queensland and a particular view of Labor governments, and he always expresses that, and he's entitled to that. But no politician or no economist comes to the debate value-free. And so he has a particular view. We're going to get back into operating surplus in 26-27. So we're going to run deficits for 2 years to help families and Queenslanders through cost of living relief, and then we're getting back into surplus. And so, given our history of surpluses, but then when things are tough, we've done a little bit more to help Queensland families so they could balance their budget when they were sitting down at the kitchen table. And so we used our resources, particularly those coal royalties, where we got that extra tax revenue from big coal companies when they were making super profits, to give that back to Queenslanders. And the benefit for Queenslanders is your taxes haven't increased. you pay about $1,000 less in state taxation each year than people living in New South Wales and Victoria. So I've been very clear not to put that tax burden on mums and dads and everyday Queenslanders, kept the tax burden away from small and medium-sized businesses so they could prosper. And we found the revenue in other ways, particularly through those progressive tax regime for coal companies. So we're going to get back to operating surplus in 26, 27, 27, 28.
Might go to Kimberley for the second question.
Good morning, Minister. Today I'd like to talk to you about your policies in relation to the cost of housing in our state. I'd like to hear about whether you're planning on changing the laws to hold real estates and owners more accountable for the massive price hikes that they're putting in rent, 25% sometimes. Okay, and the reality of the situation is that for hospitality workers and blue-collar workers, okay, if we can't afford to pay our rent, then we can't afford to live in the places where people require cafes, restaurants and workers. So have you got a policy or anything that you can give me in relation to what you're going to do about that?
Thanks for your question, Kimberley. And it's one of the most important issues facing our state. For the reasons you've expressed about how it's impacting on workers and where they live, how it's impacting on young people trying to get into the housing market. And so we have thought very deeply about this, and it's something I see every day in my electorate in Woodridge, and my electorate office spends a large proportion of its time trying to help people looking for accommodation, feeling that pressure. And so we put together a package, a program called Homes for Queenslanders, trying to look at every single thing we could do, from increasing funding for people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness, mechanisms to increase housing supply. So that's the biggest challenge. How do we build more homes? That's the single biggest problem we face in Queensland. Through to building more social and affordable homes for people, and then mechanisms like ensuring that rent can only go up annually. So looking at some of those mechanisms to help renters in particular. Also giving renters more control over the rental agreement or arrangement, so to protect their rights as part of tenancy agreements. And so we've tried to push and pull every lever to get more homes for Queenslanders. And it's something that I think about often. It's often not a finance issue for me as the Treasurer. If I could put more money into it, I would. But the issue is the construction and supply of homes. And there's other things we're doing with planning and also helping with, the things you often don't see, the infrastructure like roads, which you do see, like water and sewerage, so councils can get on with subdividing land so we can build more homes, some planning decisions around gentle density, so we can increase density where homes currently are, rather than continue to sprawl across the southeast. So I want you to know we're thinking deeply. We've got a number of those mechanisms. We're trying to use every lever to get more homes built so everyone can have a place to call their own and have a place that is safe and that is theirs. And so I want you to know that's something that we think about and we are working on very hard for Queenslanders. But thanks for your question.
Throughout the COVID pandemic, Deputy Premier, the former Premier was crowing about the number of people coming to Queensland, yet there wasn't the supply of houses at the time. What responsibility does your government take, the Labor government take, for the supply shortage that we have now that's causing problems for people like Gail?
It's a good question, Hayden. We're probably going through the biggest population growth we've seen in recent history in Queensland. And one of the challenges we have as a state is effectively forecasting population growth. And I talked about this at budget when I did the budget in June. And one of the challenges we have is that we use a lot of the national forecasting measures and data that comes out of the federal government. And they basically undershot when it came to forecasting population growth for Queensland and the country. We relied on that. And so over the period since COVID, and the federal, the Secretary of the Federal Treasury, Stephen Kennedy, went before a parliamentary inquiry and admitted that, said we got it wrong. And that's had a consequential effect on our planning. And so in the period since COVID, we've had a population come to Queensland, about 135,000 people. That's a city the size of Mackay that turned up in Queensland over 3 years that we didn't foresee and that was unforeseeable because we didn't have that data right. Now, I'm not saying that we don't take responsibility for that population growth. On balance, I'd rather us be a growth state than a state whose population is shrinking or going backwards, because overall that's a good thing. But it has created pressures on Queensland, like Kimberley has identified, in housing. And so that's why we've acted to look at those issues, to redouble our efforts. I mean, we've always had infrastructure plans in Queensland. We've always had regional planning documents for housing, for the economy in regions, including the southeast, the big southeast Queensland regional plan, but we've redoubled our efforts when we then uncovered this big population growth. So we've really focused hard on that, and we're seeing more homes coming out, more investment in housing by the private sector and the public sector. But there's more to do, and I admit, and we'll remain committed to that.
Sarah, next question from Sarah.
Thank you. Do you have a plan for the Olympic Stadium and the Olympics?
Yes, Sarah, thanks for your question. And we've made our position really clear about that. The Premier's made it very clear about what our plans are for each of the various...
Can you go over that plan a little bit?
Yeah, sure, happy to. So we're building the new indoor centre in Brisbane, that will be great for future, not just for swimming or other Olympic events, but also for future events like sports or concerts. So that's the indoor arena that will be built near the Roma Street Gardens. We've also committed to upgrading Suncorp, which is the best rectangular football stadium in the world, upgrades to the Gabba as well, and then hosting the athletics at our premier athletic stadium in Queensland, which is the Queensland Sports and Athletics Centre out at Nathan. And also, as part of that plan, ensuring that we stick within the envelope, $7.1 billion, which is the promise we made to the IOC and the community when we went for that. And so we've been very clear. Not everyone will like that plan. Not everyone will support it. But very clearly what our plan is and what we're going to do. And Mr. Crisafulli and the LNP, they just keep kicking it down the road. And now they say, we need another review. We've got to get on with it. That's my view. We've got to get on with it. We've got a clear view about what we're going to do. We're going to do it within the funding envelope. We don't need another view, and I think he's doing that to hide what he really wants to do.
For a good couple of years, though, Treasurer...
Sarah wanted to go again.
So the official Olympic Stadium, would that be out at Nathan, or would that be the Gabba, or...?
We'd have the opening and closing ceremonies at Suncorp. So that's the proposal at this time.
Isn't that a bit small for an opening and closing?
I think it's the right size for Queensland. I mean, we're obviously going to renovate it and we're going to put money into it, and if we can expand it, we'll obviously look at that. But I do think at a time where people are facing pressures on cost of living, every dollar matters. How we spend that money is important, and how we spend the money for the Olympics is really important, because people will want us to keep within the budget. And we've been very clear with that. I also want to recognise the federal government, who are our partners in investment as well. So there might be different views on that, but that's the very, very clear position we've taken. We've tried to be upfront and honest with people about that.
For 2 years, though... Thanks, Sarah. For 2 years, Deputy Premier, you didn't believe that Cusack was the option. You thought the Gabba, as did all of the ministers. You don't still believe deep in your heart, the sports fan that you are, the Lions fan that you are, that the Gabba Cusack is the stadium that Brisbane needs for the Games? Well, athletics will be held for 8 days in 8 years' time. That's the reality. And if you were to hold it at the Gabba, the truth of the Gabba is it's a circular stadium. It isn't big enough to put a running track in or to hold athletics there. You can't retrofit by just dropping that into the Gabba. And so that was part of the challenge of the Gabba proposal. You had to make the stadium bigger, which means it ended up being a demolition and a rebuild. And I think the views that were expressed consistently over a long period of time about that made it clear that Queenslanders weren't happy with that idea, and I think that was expressed. Some people liked it, but a lot of people expressed that very clearly to me before I was the Deputy Premier, to the Premier as well. And then Graham Quirk did that review.
his suggestion was to demolish the Gabba, turn that into a park, although he didn't put a dollar figure on that, which would cost money to do that, and then rebuild a new stadium at Victoria Park. And we didn't think that was the right decision for Queensland. And so we made a decision about where we think athletics should be. And you know, I don't want to delay the discussion, but, you know, David Christofili's denigration of Upper Mount Gravatt, saying it's in the bush, nobody goes there. Like, I went to the opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Games. That athletics centre has delivered for Queensland for 40 years. It's not as though it hasn't been used for 40 years. It's the second or third most used stadium in Queensland. So we use it for athletics, we use it for training, we use it for schools, and I'm not ashamed of it. I grew up on the south side. I live in Logan now. I think that's part of the legacy. We need a world-class athletics centre for this state, and that's what QSAC can deliver for us as part of the Olympic story for Queensland. And so that's why we've landed on that.
Thank you. I want to get your thoughts, if I could, on where the election stands at the moment. Polls and pundits are predicting that David Christofili will be Queensland's 41st Premier. Do you share frustration that some of your colleagues do that Anastasia Palaszczuk, had she gone earlier, this would be a closer contest?
Look, I can't change the past, Hayden, and I can't control those issues. The former Premier made a decision to retire in December last year, and they are the cards that are dealt to political parties when every leader makes those sorts of decisions. But I think since then you've seen Stephen and I really energetically and enthusiastically try to address the issues facing Queenslanders today, which are principally cost of living, housing, healthcare and community safety, and getting real results out of that, but also looking to the future. Like, this is the most incredible place in Australia. I think it's the most incredible place in the world. And our future is just so bright when you see the strength of our economy, what our people are capable of, the vision of the Olympics that we went for during COVID and we succeeded. I just think our vision, which we can fund, not hiding our costings. We've seen the LNP not talk about their total costings and how they're going to fund it until today. You know, we've got about 36 hours to pick up polls open on Saturday morning. I don't think that's the right thing. And so we tried to be upfront, not only dealing with the issues of today, but the plans for the future that will continue to see Queensland prosper and grow, and that all Queenslanders will benefit and no one is left behind.
Sarah, you've got one more question?
Yes. Do you know what the Bruce Highway Western alternative is? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the second Bruce, yeah. Inland, yeah.
Stage 4 is supposed to go through a whole heap of houses and uproot a whole heap of families. What are your thoughts on that? Because David Christofili has already said that if he gets elected, he's chucking that out the window, and because there are better alternatives. But at the moment, it looks like it's going ahead and going through my aunt and uncle's house. So I kind of like Miles and seeing they're going, no, let's not go through people's houses.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. Look, I'm sorry, I would have to refresh myself on the actual route and the number of homes impacted.
So you don't know anything about it?
I know the route is designed to run down the inland spine of Queensland, but not the specific route that might be impacting on your family. I do know that infrastructure does impact on families. I've seen it in my own community. We're doing the Logan to Gold Coast Faster Rail project, and that's had a real impact on a lot of homes in my electorate, and I've tried to work with Transport and Main Roads very sympathetically and compassionately with those people involved, and the department has responded very thoughtfully, I think. So that's the challenge. I would have to refresh myself about that and what the alternatives are, and also speak to Bart Mellish, our Transport Minister, about, well, what is the design route? Have we thought through that? I hope we have done whatever we can to reduce impact already as limited as possible. But what is the real impact? How many homes? And I'm happy to refresh myself on that. So I'm sorry I can't provide you a specific answer today, but happy to look at that for you.
Okay, that's disappointing. Thanks.
That's all I have. Any other audience questions? Everyone okay? Wonderful. Deputy Premier, do you want to make a closing statement?
No, I'd just like to reinforce what I said earlier. it's lovely to get together. I'm happy to take those questions. And I'm also happy to sort of set out our vision, I think, for where we think Queensland should go. And, you know, the world is run by people who turn up, and I'm so pleased you're here today. I hope I did my best to give you those answers. You know, the future's in your hands now, as it is in so many Queenslanders. We've had 1 million people vote already in early voting centres. They are really engaging with this, and I just think that's brilliant for Queensland. Our process of democracy here has kept our state in such a good shape for more than 160 years now, and now we hand it over to the people. It's a humbling thing to be part of the electoral process too. It's very humbling to stand on the corner, as I have at early voting centres, and to ask for people's support. It's a very humbling thing, and I hope we can, whoever's in power can continue to show humility to you as we deliver for you and your families in the future.
Thank you. I was going to ask Jarrod to do some closing remarks, but I think we might just spin the wheel. What do you think? Can you do that?
Time.
And then your best impersonation of Jarrod, reading it out, please.
Not possible. There we go.
There you go.
Another hollow statement from Jarrod to finish off today.
Thanks, Deputy Premier. Thank you for watching. As the Deputy Premier said, democracy is about people turning up. We appreciate Stephen Miles and David Crisafulli and the Deputy Premier being accessible to us as journalists and Queenslanders throughout the campaign. Not all politicians have been as accessible. We hope it won't become the status quo, no matter who wins on October 26. Thank you to the audience. Thank you for watching.